Okay, so everybody, we are gonna get started here, so because we probably could spend the hour or more time. Anyway, thank you for coming from the Theater Lovers Club. We have been trying to put on talks about different aspects of the theater for over the last year or two. Is that better? Do I have to project here? Really? Okay. Anyway, for about the last year or two, we have been putting on talks for anyone in our group, theater lovers, or anyone who's interested actually, on different aspects of the theater, from production to the actors themselves, to costume design, to stage. And now we are lucky tonight to have two of my favorite people here. I've known these guys for quite a while, Skip and Jeff, and they both do amazing things. So Skip is doing lighting primarily, Jeff sound. And Jeff also works right up there a lot in these productions. You'll be able to find him up there, always. And Skip has worked here too, so when he's here, he's up there as well, doing all of this, and otherwise he's at the lab. So these guys have been around probably Santa Fe for 25, 30.
I've been here 25 years.
How long have you been here, Skip?
I've been in Santa Fe since
You're gonna have to speak up too.
84, so on and off for 40 years, so I was gone for a few years.
And Skip, you've been here?
I've been in Santa Fe since '98, and I started designing Santa Fe about 2001. I came out of retirement. Okay.
We have an older group, and also the acoustics aren't perfect, so, yeah, we all have to remind ourselves.
Fair enough.
Okay, so anyway, what I wanted to do tonight, I have sent them several different questions about what they do, how they do it, what has been challenging for them, because working in a theater like this versus, say, the Greer, as you know, or something, is quite a different prospects in terms of both sound and lighting. So I'm gonna start by asking them how they got started in these, and then I would really have some other questions, and if you guys have one and you wanna write it on a piece of paper, I will consider asking them as well in your time. So I would like us to get as much as we can, because without sound and light, a theater production changes quite dramatically. I mean, it's like a reading.
Sometimes with it.
Sometimes even with sound and lighting, it's like a reading. But we're gonna hope that no one has a much broader appeal, right? Okay, so starting, Skip, just tell us a little bit about how you got started in lighting design.
So, when I was in high school, I sort of joined the theater group and did a little bit of technical stuff, which was interesting and fun. But when I went to college, I actually started off majoring in political science. Within a year, realized I kind of hated political science, and went and talked to the theater department about transferring into the theater department. This was at the University of Illinois in 1970, and they had just opened a brand new theater complex the year before, and when I said I was interested in technical theater, they basically said, well, come on in, we don't got anybody yet. Been involved in theater or entertainment of some sort pretty much ever since.
So did you get your lighting?
Oh, okay, so I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Design for Theater in Illinois, and then I got a Master's of Fine Arts in Performance and Production Studies from California Institute of the Arts, which is where I met Benny, because he was the dean of the theater department at that time.
Oh, that's
So,
beautiful.
yeah, we go back a long way.
Long relationship.
Yes.
So what, I'm just gonna ask, since we're here, so what theater do you think has been the most complex, and we'll get into it later, to light?
So,
Or what production?
it is not a simple question.
I know.
The there's a great deal of challenge as a lighting designer of accomplishing what you and the director want to do in a space like this, or the Actors Lab, where your equipment is minimal, you have very real limitations on your angles and your positioning, and that is very much a challenge. One of the sort of consistent challenges, which was also a consistent learning experience, is about a year or so after I got my master's. I moved to New York after my master's degree, because that's what you do, and ended up touring with the acting company as their lighting director. And at that time, they did not carry their own lighting equipment. So it was a constant routine of getting into a theater in the morning, hanging your entire light plot, because even though the contract said it was supposed to be in there when I walked in the door, it never was. But hanging and focusing and gelling the entire show, writing all of the cues, and doing the show that night. And that sort of schedule, you either die very quickly or you learn very fast. And I learned very fast, fortunately.
He's still here.
And you learn, you learn how to work fast, how to make decisions quickly, and how to get it done without wasting the actor's time. The actors, I would never get a rehearsal with the actors.
Well, we'll talk about that too, because you should have lighting.
Well, in that schedule, you don't.
You should.
Should.
And also time.
Sure.
But, it's the same thing, the sound person had the exact same issue. They were basically setting up their sound system or tying into the house sound system and setting their levels and setting their cues, and then they have also had to go that. So, it's a challenge, it's a great learning experience.
What can you tell us about the same kind of trajectory?
Not quite as romantic.
That's not as romantic. Skip's always
In some ways it is. I wish when I was younger, and in high school, that I had been exposed to that there was even a drama club. I had no clue. I was a student conductor for the orchestra, but there was no mingling of those two departments when I was in school. I was a musician most of my life up till then. I went to college. My degrees are in finance and economics, but what got me into sound design, I had always been in charge of the PA systems and doing the sound for the bands that I was in, and working in studios, recording the bands and recording me and all of that. But to get my initial jump in the water into theater happened here in Santa Fe. My wife JoJo and I were in a band together, and she was working with the Southwest Children's Theater at that time, which was at the Playhouse. And they asked me if I would audition for a part in The Emperor's New Clothes. It lasted about 5 minutes, and Rebecca said, no, I'll find something else for you to do. So, as it was, they needed at that time, or true, yeah, skip, I had worked with Jess Brassich, who was at the Playhouse, and Dylan Durrell, who did a lot of the light design for them. And I would help them with doing the lighting and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, they needed a board operator. So I learned basically the same board we're still using, right?
Same board
At the Playhouse, not theirs, of course, but the CTC model.
What's a CTC?
Well, it's the brand of light disc.
The boards
ETC is
have
a company,
changed,
yeah.
I'm sure, since you started.
There's a whole difference with it, for sure. But then it came up that Rebecca in her productions, and still to this day, a lot of sound cues. And so I got involved in starting to record those, collecting them and recording those elements that she needed sound-wise, really for the children's theater. And since we were at the Playhouse, it was just a natural fit that we need a board op, you know, you know, fortunately, people like Skip, I worked with Skip to hang and focus lights over there, and Dylan and Jess, Argos, at that time building sets. That was really how I got thrown into the whole world of theater. And still doing it, you know, still doing both, I love it. Sound, you know, music, of course, is probably my greatest love. Theater is probably number 2, you know, so.
So you've come at it from very different directions, but the work you do for us here is so great. So I want to get into that a little bit too, because I was going to ask you, so we talked a little bit about the different venues that you've worked in. What is the biggest venue you've worked in to do lighting? Because that's a real different kind of situation than a small theater.
So in Santa Fe, Melange.
And that's got quite.
Actually, I've worked as crew at the Melange for quite a while, but I've only designed one show there, which was for Little Globe, a show called Memory Lines, which was a wonderful show, and it was simultaneous. It was actually a pleasure to work in that well-equipped theater with a first-rate, friendly crew. It was a little scary because only that I hadn't worked in space that size for some time, and you know, again, it's a matter of writing a lot of the cues without the cast, but the cast sort of wandering around the stage, and being worried about, okay, is this going to be bright enough? Is this going to be too dark? Is this going to be too bright? And basically trusting my instinct, and also Sarah was at that time my board op and programmer, basically saying, no, you're fine, don't worry about it. So that was fun. And other than that, I mean, when I was touring the acting company, I played in a lot of fairly large college theaters, and I was not the designer, I was the assistant to the lighting designer at Queens College for a production of King Lear, directed by John Houseman. That was a large, it was a situation where everything was rented, which is a whole other world. It's basically an empty shell of a theater, and you bring in everything. And it's working with a Broadway designer and we brought in everything. And that was probably the heaviest lighting plot that I've ever brought in. That's the conversation.
Jan and I were at the Lindsay for Christmas. They had a thing on their stage. When you came into that theater, there was lighting. There was projections around the room. There was lighting, and it was amazing. They have a lot of stuff, a lot of work.
Yes, they did. It's a very well put space.
So, to you, same thing. Biggest
Well,
place you
as far as from a theater realm, I mean, I used to, you know, set levels and stuff for our groups and work with the sound guys. You know, places as big as the Desert Auditorium Arena, I guess, is probably the biggest. Some big outdoor venues, Red Rocks. At that time, none of the lighting, of course, but you know, from that sound perspective. As far as the theater goes, I have to say the Hispanic Cultural Center in from both, not so much a sound, you know, it's sound thing, designing sound is, you know, you go through the script with the director or not. Oftentimes, here we go, you know. I think back to the Playhouse when we would do the Benchwarmer series was going on. And I just was really getting my teeth cut. Skip really is such a big tutor to me. I would help him hang and focus, and then finally I started doing it with the lighting. But the sound challenges with that were, you know, 8 different plays, and every director would have their list of cues that they needed, so you put those together, and then there was always one, you know, God rest his soul, Ron Bloomberg would show up on the day of opening, I want to change this to this.
Just surprise.
And that was always a challenge, but it's, you know, it's a labor of love, so it's never, I don't find anything, some of the new technology I don't understand, but it's not over my head, I make it work, because that has changed a whole lot in the last,
Exactly what I
40,
wanted to
50
talk to you
years.
both about too, because it has changed.
it's amazing what we can do now.
Especially sound, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can generate it, you know, go back into the music world a little bit. Jojo and I, our band Melange, we won 3 years in a row, we won Mike Awards, New Mexico Music Industry Coalition Awards for Best Songwriting, Best Album, that kind of stuff. And I'll remember when we nominated in 4th year in 3 different categories. And I drugged my parents down from Denver, first time I take JoJo's parents, we all went, these wonderful dinners, like going to the Academy Awards, very small scale, but that's how you felt. And I remember the keynote speaker talking about Eric Larson. Did you know Eric at all? Incredible engineer. And the whole keynote address was about the technology has changed so much that you can create a whole album without musicians. We're already at that point in 90, whatever that was there. So, which is great, and I grasped a hold of that. And the band that won Best Band of the Year is a guy all by himself up there singing with an entire orchestra behind him. Okay? So it had already started to change. And so likewise with all the sound effects and things like that. I mean, this summer we had the joy of moving into a new home. So I was discarding things from the past. And one of the things that I discarded from the past was boxes and boxes of CDs and cassettes that all had sound effects on them, from different shows over the years. You know, and then it's like, well, so what do I do with these, you know? You used to stick a disc in or go back farther to even the cassettes when we use those. It's all totally different now. You can download about anything you want off of any myriad of websites, free. And I actually like that. In fact, I was pulling some sound today for our next production here, which is Big Words. And it's, you know, yeah, that's what I need, and you go through a couple, 3, 4, 5 different samples, and it's wonderful. You know, it's really easy to do.
So let's talk about the directors and how you put these things together, because I know both of you have to sit down, or do sit down, should sit down? What's the proper word here? Sit down with the director, go through the script, not only for lighting, but also sound. So.
I call that a luxury.
You call that a luxury? Doesn't happen all the time?
No.
Wow.
The beginning of my design process has evolved over the years. And what I'd like to do now, and it's not always the way the director wants to work, in which case I do it the way they want to work. One of my most important lessons in theater was it's not my show. Unless I'm paying all the salaries, it's not my show. And so that's where you get your ego out of the way. But what I like to do, frequently, unless specifically asked to do so by the director, I tend to not read the script until the tape read. Because I've discovered that I learn much more about a play listening to it than reading it. And in listening to it, I start getting the feel for what kind of lighting is asking for, whether it's mood or something as basic as time of day, or just getting a sense of starting to get a sense of where the play is asking for light cues. Much of the time I work with directors that I have worked with before, and we know each other and we trust each other. I will always, you know, especially even no matter how many times I've worked with a director, I'll ask, you know, is there anything you're seeing here? Is there some, you know, do you have any strong, you know, sense of this is what I want this scene to look like, or I want this thing to happen at this point in the script? Because, you know, I wanna know that stuff. I wanna make sure that as I'm developing my vision of the play, that's in there already. Even though it's entirely possible that when the director actually sees exactly what he or she asked for, they're gonna look at it and go, yeah, that's not it. But still, and there's a lot of plays where even in reading it, it's not really clear what the script is asking for. So it's dependent on the director's vision of the script. I think one of the, well, when we did JQA at the Actors Lab, Ben and Eddie directed that. And the script doesn't tell you a whole lot. What guided the design of that was Benny having a fairly specific sense of of what he wanted to have the lighting to. Of how this, because how the introductions could look, and how that should vary from the small scenes, and that's where I started from and put together. Ultimately, I basically started with, okay, here's what he wants. Here's the stuff where he doesn't have a clear thing where he knows what he wants. Okay, so what do I want there? And sort of develop, get from that point. So what the director wants is always essential, even if it's not really what they want. Because as a designer, you can't not do what they want, because if you get a little upset, and you're not gonna work with them again. Yeah, so, sometimes the director will want to talk about the script before the table read, and then I read the script. And then we sit down and I start by listening to them, and then I add in my thoughts.
And Jeff?
Similar,
It is a little bit.
both in the lighting things that I've done here and the sound things that I've done. Here in particular, it's oftentimes it's a luxury to be able to have the time to do that. We have things coming in and out here, so oftentimes it's meet with the director on Monday, the show goes up Friday. I've experienced that with the flamenco company all the time. Usually have like a couple days to get it up and running and ready to go. I'm usually cueing it opening night. Sound for a dance company is real easy because I love working those. Here you go, play this. Thank you.
Yeah, they already give it to you.
That's right,
Yeah,
pretty
they
simple.
give it to you.
I too, I don't usually, I can't think of a reading I've been to for a number of years. I mean, where I get the script first. I like to come in once they know what they're doing. Sets up, they know where they're going, and again, it's usually because of a time thing. So light it based on what I'm seeing.
Sound.
More than anything. Well, again, at the beginning of the process, here's the sounds that we need. And
Do they sit down and go through that with you in the script though?
well, we go through it in the script eventually. Typically, I like it when they give me a list. So this is what we're going to need for this show, and I'll find it and we'll put it together. Sometimes there's the children's theater is one of those instances where you need 50 sound cues. We go in my father's house. It was just here. There was a lot of sound stuff in there. A lot of music, a lot of specific cut points, a lot of things that are really labor intensive, take time, all the way to whatever you think. What do you think? What do you like? What do you want to do? But yeah, so I get involved in the process, but usually a little bit farther along than the reading, than the first reading. If it looks like it needs it, then yes. But again, we don't have that luxury for a whole lot.
I have a question that is, do you put both sound and lighting on the board so that you can bring it up and down? Do you do that or not? Because sometimes one person runs the board, I know. And maybe everybody doesn't understand how the board works here. So we should explain that to them.
Most theaters will have a lighting console and some manner of, something that's outputting sound, whether it's a laptop or.
So two things, no.
In a small theater, you want it possible for one person to run both. There are technologies that will run sound and light cues through the same laptop. I remember, this is a show that actually Jeff should tell the story, but I'll start it going since I was not directly involved with the show. There was a show at the Playhouse, I recall, where the designer felt that all the light cues and all the sound cues could only be recorded onto a laptop, and you press the go button at the beginning of the show, and everything just goes. Which is a wonderful idea, except that you have human beings on the stage.
It doesn't, they don't always
And
go when
as I
you
recall,
want.
Jeff made him
Yeah.
reprogram it so at least there was a go at the beginning of each scene.
Right.
But I remember sitting in the audience and watching it, and I could tell there were some scenes where the actors clearly finished the scene and nothing happened. And then it happened. And there were other scenes where all of a sudden, towards the end of the scene, everyone started talking a lot faster. Because they knew.
That was Empty Bed Blues.
Empty bed blues.
Empty bed
And,
blues.
we had a proceeding at the Playhouse at that time. So this program, it was Isadora, it was an Apple program at the time. And Corliss had done the designing, I think, I know I helped hang it, he probably, anyway. So we get to the point, so everything was, you just hit this go button and it goes. And so having board op many times and the back button early on had become my favorite thing. Because if you jump at the back button on a board, you can hit a button and it'll take you back to the previous cue. So he has all this stuff programmed and ready to go. I said, well, this is marvelous. You know, there were projections, Jaguar going across the top of the proscenium and sound effects and all sorts of different things happening. And I said, so what happens if the actor drops a line? You know, when the timing is off all of a sudden. In this case, it was somewhere in the show, there was like a 20-minute monologue. Chris Dempsey was the actor. And he had this monologue. Chris was great. But, of course, he dropped it, you know. After I had gone, when Corliss said to me, all you gotta do is hit the go button, you'll be good to go. I said, that's great. I said, what if somebody misses a line or something? He said, well, just call me. I said, well, Corliss, I said, I'm the one up in the booth. These people are gonna be looking at me saying, you know,
Call me.
what are you doing? You know, it's like, so, I said, call me doesn't work, okay? So that's when we had him come in and fix the program, so that if there was a problem like that, there was a way to get out of it without the actors and everybody waiting for it to get to the next cue, you know, kind of a thing. And, you know, sure enough, you know, Chris dropped that line and I was so thankful to be able to go to the next cue and not have to wait for the computer to catch up with the show. Now, a program like that works wonderfully in a dance show where everything is specific, the timing is specific, all the movements are specific. Julie Brett Adams, who Skip used to hang a lot for, and I'd run those. It was always, a program like that would work really, really well. But the minute you get into a live situation, I mean, you need to be able to be a part of the show and adjust to the show.
So once you work with humans, right?
Yeah.
Humans.
Yeah, exactly.
Humans are predictable.
I got a couple questions.
Go ahead.
One of them is, you know, where does all the power come from? And then, does all these lights actually have a switch that makes them control? And do you control it manually in your little finger? Or is this thing computerized?
Okay,
So,
these are big, so go ahead, Skip. and then we'll get to Jeff.
Okay, so each light is plugged into a dimmer. Through a low voltage, series of low voltage cables, information is transmitted to the dimmer from the lighting console.
Wireless.
So the lighting console, I mean, the technology has obviously evolved over the years. There wasn't, I remember a show when I was touring that they had very, very basic, literally, there was a wall of dimmers. Each box had 6 dimmers and a master, and there was a wall of them, and it took 6 students to execute every light cube.
Ooh.
They never missed a cue though. Now it's all done electronically.
Okay.
The console up there does have individual sliders for each dimmer, but you actually bring up all your dimmers to the look you like, and you press record cue number 1, and then you do another look and record cue number 2, and then the actual running of the show, you hit the go button and cue number 1 goes, and then you hit the go button and cue number 2 goes. And the console sends a signal to all of the dimmers, and each dimmer sends that information to the fixture. So the information is, this fixture at 70%,
Yeah.
and that's what the light comes out to.
Nice. So you pre-program it, it remembers it next scene.
Yes, on extremely modern floppy disks.
Leslie has a question.
And are any of the lights, can you control them so you could track an actor across the stage?
In here now.
Down at the cultural center, we were doing, I can't remember what show we were doing down there, the first time I got to go into the big theater. And they had just acquired the new Ion board, or they'd had it for a little while. And it was so cool. First off, there wasn't a ladder involved in any of it. Here we still have to get up on ladders and focus, do the gel thing, and then program the board. But down there on that particular system, you had all the instruments are motorized. You have a joystick. Right? For color, you go to a color wheel and find your color, and then you program. I mean, that's a real simple approach to it. That's what I was so excited. So look at that, you could move some light goes like this.
So you can actually move the light.
Well, in terms of the specific, in terms of actually having programming the fixture, pre-programming the fixture so it will follow an actor across the stage, do run again into the human problem. In that actor better take the exact same steps at the exact same time, or they're not going to be in the light anymore. It's very, again, technology got way ahead of me, I'll confess to that. Whether or not today's moving lights can be programmed on the fly that quickly to literally follow an actor across the stage, I'm not sure if they can do it yet. They're probably a hell of a lot closer to being able to do it than the last time I tried to do something myself. Because there's always a lag between the time that you move your little joystick and the fixture on the stage moves.
So before the show, when you're up on your ladder aiming all of these things, and you don't have the actors to work with, do you have put focus tapes on the floor, or how do you do that?
Well,
Acting
you will have
stay what
watched,
you're supposed to is in my.
you will have watched rehearsals.
Yeah.
And usually before you do your initial focus or you go back and make corrections. What I tend to do as part of my process is as soon as the director tells me I have, a whole act you can watch or number of scenes you can watch, I'm going to watch to see how they are using the space. And that will inform how I'm going to focus the lights. I try to get a rough focus light plot up in the air as quickly as possible so I can come in during rehearsal and look at it and go, okay, well, that works, that doesn't work. Okay, they're not standing where I thought they were, so I got to move that light over there. And consult with the director, basically, is that always where she's going to be? Or do I need to leave some leeway for the actor to move and stay in light? And you learn that from watching rehearsal, and then you'll especially if your stage manager is on top of things, the actors be more or less in the same place every performance. And when the actor decides to not be in the place where they're supposed to be and they are in complete darkness, every lighting designer gets blamed. It's not our fault. We didn't plan it that way.
Find your light.
Find your light, yes.
So in terms of that, just being at the front end, you often sit and watch blocking, right? So you're wait, do you get in at the first, or do you kind of see the blocking and then do the
I
lighting?
used to go to almost every rehearsal
And look at
the blocking and let it permeate my subconscious. Especially in a theater, and this would be back in the playhouse, where you only have so many lights, and you have to use them as efficiently as possible. And on a conscious or subconscious level, you sort of have to know, okay, I'm putting this light over here, and wait a minute, that guy's over there in that scene, so I'll move it over here just a little bit, and it'll work for both those scenes, that type of stuff. Now, through, I don't know if it's a combination of laziness and more familiarity, I pretty much wait until they actually have full scenes or if possible full acts and take it all in at once. So,
Well, same thing as far as the lighting goes. Same thing. I like to go once there's something to go see. Okay, I don't necessarily need to see them talking about blocking, although I've sat through a lot of that as well. But once it's getting close, okay, is when I start thinking about the lighting stuff. A lot of times with sound, run a sample by the director. Yeah, that's great. But you don't necessarily get to fire the sound until you're in tech. The first tech rehearsal, you want to hear the sound. The actors need to start hearing the sound so they know not to keep talking, that there's whatever.
Yeah, there's a telephone ringing.
When to pick up the phone. I want 3 rings and someone picks it up after 1. I think it was Rebecca Morley who said to me, because I was doing sound for them before I was doing any designing of lights. I was running her board, but she was saying to me, it's a lot more noticeable to the audience when there's a sound problem than when there's a lighting problem. Because lighting sometimes, you can fade in, you can fade out, you can do stuff like that. But boy, if you fire an explosion 2 minutes early, so not only does the audience jump, but the director usually jumps up into the booth. I've never encountered that, but yeah, so from that end, so typically sound doesn't get thrown into it. I mean, some directors probably, I've not worked with one who wants their sound while they're blocking kind of a thing.
I was just thinking at the lab, lately we've seen some plays where there's been dogs barking in the background, other sounds happening in the background. There was the recent play, with those two and their dog, and then he had some kind of, something that was making noise and he was running back there. And you did the lighting.
I did the lighting, I was Eden Prairie. And actually, Nico did his own sound design.
Oh, okay.
And it was actually fairly involved. Whether you noticed it or not, there were crickets going.
Yes, there were crickets, there were dogs.
And they were on a whole different little sound system, basically, so they could run continuously.
Okay, at night, because we're hearing, it was all at night.
But it was interesting sound design, and some of it was like dogs barking, and
Then there was that.
It wasn't, if the dog barks a little too early or a little too late,
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't really throw anybody off. But things like the clock striking 12 at the very beginning, if it doesn't, he's standing there waiting. Okay, I need to hear that clock before it starts too early. So it was an interesting mixture of stuff that was relatively non-specific and stuff that was extremely specific.
There's been some more complicated, I'm just thinking about some of the plays we've seen here. There's been some that have definitely been more complicated more recently than.
I've noticed a trend towards more complex soundscapes. And also more use of projection.
Yes,
And I have
For
mixed feelings about that. I mean, it does, at a certain point, you have to go, I sort of find myself thinking, if you want to do a movie, do a movie. But this is the,
It's been going on for a while.
it's been
it has.
building up.
It's been building, yes.
I notice it most with a lot of film actors, when they come in, they're back on maybe they've been on the stage before, but now they're on the stage and all of a sudden the person sitting here can't hear them, let alone someone up in the booth. And because there's always a mic over their head in film, we don't have that in theater, so projection becomes a really big deal. And I'm the same way. I mean, I love all the stuff that you can do now, but
Some of them are wearing.
it's just, I don't know. For a while, it seemed like for a couple of years, everybody had projectors. And that's kind of, now we kind of get an even mix of
The
people.
lab
with
was doing
projectors.
a lot of projections for a while. I have a question.
Yeah, how has LED lighting changed what you do?
So, it has pluses and minuses. I still do not completely love the way LED lights look on faces. I think they're getting better. At the Actors Lab, they invested in a half a dozen very nice LED fixtures, and having the ability to change colors, to have one fixture be basically any color you want at any point during the play is just wonderful from a design standpoint, because it just gives you so many more possibilities. I have a regular discussion with actors about LEDs because actors frequently find their light by feeling it on their face. Because non-LED lights are very warm, literally. You can feel the light, especially if you sort of trained yourself to be able to feel the light. You can't do that with LEDs.
What do you mean, Fresnels?
Regular lighting.
Regular lights like these lights.
Regular lights.
Regular Licos, Fresnels, these are all, these have, 575 watt lamps in them. And that's a lot of heat, and you feel that as an actor. LED lights are literally only a couple watts. And they do generate some heat, but nothing near to the point where if you're standing on stage, you feel that light. So I can't really speak as an actor, but I suspect some of them kind of miss having that, that little clue to where the light is. That being said, LEDs are not going away. They are, the fixtures themselves are much more expensive, but you don't need dimmers, so you save a lot of money there. LEDs communicate directly with the console. They don't need dimmers. They do need to basically have every LED fixture has two ports coming out of it. One of it goes to electrical power, and the other one is a low voltage that carries the signal from the console. And while these lights, the console talks to the dimmer, and the dimmer talks to the light. LEDs, there's no dimmer. The console talks directly to the fixture. They save a lot of money on air conditioning in the summer. On the other hand, they also heat. There are a lot of theaters that get heated by their old-fashioned fixtures in the winter, so it's kind of a toss-up. But LEDs, they're not going away. In many ways, they're wonderful. In many ways, they are, I think, part of it is basically they make your existing equipment obsolete very quickly.
So, do they have like Fresnels and Lico
Yes.
LEDs?
A lot of the initial designs were based, and still are based on existing incandescent fixtures. The only difference being is instead of the 575 watt halogen lamp, they have a little LED diode. But other than that, the fixture is basically physically the same.
I've noticed in the LEDs, they don't, and they're getting there, they're getting better, but they don't respond quickly, you know?
Is there a bit of a lag?
And it takes, yeah, a bit of a lag.
I actually find that when you have LEDs and incandescents in the same queue, the LEDs get there first.
Interesting. Well, yeah, but they come on, they flash on to their point. And that's like when we were set up the bubble machine here, the way we had to take, I had to program it to, come right on and not wait its time, so yeah.
Could you explain the difference between a Lico and a Fresnel
Oh, okay.
and what they do?
So, the main difference is in the optics. A Lico is designed to have a sharp, shapeable beam. So it uses, the reflector is an ellipsoid, which focuses the light through a single point, at least we can read. And then that light comes out as a shapeable beam that has shutters. So you bring the shutter in and you can literally see the light being shaped as you bring the shutters in, top, bottom, side. You can drop patterns in. And ellipsoidal light has 2 points. And one point is where the bulb is, and the other point is where you would drop an agobo pattern, like a leaf pattern you might see. You saw last several shows, the actors like to have a lot of leaf patterns and then the star patterns on the side. Those are all done with an ellipsoidal, with a Lico. A Fresnel is designed to actually be a softer light. It is controllable in terms of the width of the light. They're usually designed that the space between the lamp and the lens is variable. So as you move the lamp forward, the beam gets wider. It has a soft edge, and you can put what are called barn doors on it to shape it, but it's a much softer shaping.
These guys.
It's more, instead of that hard edge of the Lico will give you, it's a very soft edge. And so they're used for, different purposes.
Like what?
Well,
We have a couple more questions, so go ahead and ask.
okay.
Finish.
Briefly stated, because of the controllability of the Lico, anywhere where you want the light to, I want to light, the door, but I don't want to light the wall next to the door. You're going to use a Lico because you can literally cut it right at the edges of the door. And because it's shapeable, it's very good for defining an area. Fresnels are very good for a backlight, or anywhere where you don't need that precision of shaping.
I'm gonna let you go ahead.
Yes, you mentioned the console for lighting, but earlier I thought I heard you mention a board for both lighting and sound. Could you explain that a little bit further?
Kind of interchangeable words. They're kind of interchangeable. This is a board, but it's what we call a console, that control, in this case, the lights. Sound-wise, most of us are still using a mixer, where whatever sound elements, however many you're gonna use, are plugged in, and same thing, you have sliders, but it's typically not part of the we refer to as console, or at least I refer to as a console. You know,
So board and the council are synonymous, essentially.
pretty much.
Leslie? you
Um,
wanna-
You mentioned before that there's available any kind of sound effect you want. Of course, there's a whole world of music out there. Could you address copyright with respect to all that?
Sure. Being a composer. Depending on the production, I mean, technically, if you're using someone else's music, you need to get it licensed to use it. A lot of plays that you pay royalties on, that is included with that, you know, assuming that you can use the songs that were originally done for a musical. Like if you pay the royalties for, whatever, like Triumph, now the music comes with that, you get the vibratos and everything that comes along with it. There are, I suppose there's some question on, like pre-show music. I mean, to go through and get, like if I put on 10 songs for pre-show, I've not called the copyright owner of that music to find out if it's okay for me to use it. It's kind of, it's not necessarily public domain, but it's kind of accepted that it's being used for things like that. We did a show here some years ago about Violeta Parra, and it was her music and her poetry totally in that show. I pulled my hair out trying to get a hold of, first it was Sony, then it was BMI, and finally to her family, who I never heard back from. I wanted to get permission because I had rearranged this music. I kind of changed her music to make it more presentable for the show. That's bothered me ever since because I never taught. Violeta had passed away certainly years before, but never really got permission to do it.
So when you have a show that's, say, set in the 60s and you're setting the mood with 60s rock, you have to get copyright for those?
You might have to, yeah, depends on, I don't do it often, but it has come up in the past, that, you need to have the rights to use the song. Because who knows if their cousin's sitting out here and say, hey, these people are playing your song. That's one of the things one of the nice things that one of the things I've enjoyed doing a lot was writing music for a couple of productions. The one that really comes to mind is Dead Man's Cell Phone. And Catherine Donovan, who was directing it, she really wanted to be that kind of 40s film noir kind of music that was there. Well, all the music, you would need to get rights to do that. So she let me write music for the whole show. So it was all original music. I own it. We did it. Didn't have to pay anybody to do it. So, except for me. But yeah, it just depends. You have to look at each show and what they're using. If it's something very current, I think you want to be diligent about seeing if you need to pay to use that music in the production itself. Now again, in pre-show, it's like a person can turn on the radio, and that's okay. So it's kind of pre-show music. I look at it, it's like that. You're playing the song list. It's just I pull it off of YouTube or whatever, and it works. But again, if it's a piece of the production itself, I think you need to be conscious of someone else's work, someone else's artistic identity.
Do you have anything else to add to that, Skip?
Like I know, there's a lot of scripts, a lot of plays that reference specific pieces of music. And those specific pieces of music are very important to the action or to the characters. And normally in the script, there'll be a note somewhere, this is who you contact to get the rights to use this piece of music. Now, I'm the light designer, I don't know if they actually do that. I kind of hope they do, because literally, as you said, somebody's brother could be in the audience and be, hey, wait a minute.
And you copyright it.
Right, some guy from BMI comes in and says, hey, I'm pretty sure they did
That's a good question.
the rights to that.
I was,
Call the lawyer.
Joyce has been waiting forever over here, so I just wanna let you know, we have 4 minutes till 7. So it's gone very quickly tonight, so do you mind staying maybe 5 minutes more?
No problem.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Considering your specialties, what brought you to Santa Fe and what kept you here?
Kept you here.
Okay, well, it had nothing to do with what I'm doing.
Right.
I moved to Santa Fe because my ex-wife decided she wished to become a doctor of Oriental medicine. And we had a very good school here at that time. And we had actually bought some property here because I had relatives in town. So we built a house and moved here. And I think what is the archetypical Santa Fe story, I moved here with a wife and a house, and I don't have either one of them. I basically got to Santa Fe and went, oh, I'm home.
Yeah.
And she got to Santa Fe and went, yeah, I gotta leave now. So, that's how I got here, and that's why I'm still here. I just found things to do, and I ended up unretiring from lighting design.
Well, okay, mine's a little different. As I mentioned earlier, my degrees were in finance and economics, and I was a certified financial planner when I moved to Santa Fe. I wanted to start my own business. Didn't work out. And I had met JoJo playing music, and she got me involved in the field. And I've been doing that ever since.
We are so lucky. We are so lucky to have both of you.
It's fun to help bring a show to life. You know, 'cause it really does. I mean, it's kind of had this discussion last week with someone, but you know, do you want just a fluorescence on? Because we can sure do that. You know, but it does. It brings so much. You bring the mood with the lighting and the sound for sure. It's a lot of fun.
Two more questions,
I just
and
have
then.
a question. I'm not that familiar with theater, but I'm someone like you film, like, remember Hitchcock, where you have the turning of like a doorknob, right? You just hear it. How does that translate in
You can hear
theater?
us too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Done things like that, both in two different ways. There are, and always have been. You can always find a recording of, and you've always been able to kind of do that. I mean, as far as I know. But also on a couple of occasions, I can remember having either the stage manager or someone backstage with a box with chains in it to create. And I've gotten really, as I've grown more in the theater, I really like it when it's something they can do for real, where it's live, where it's part of the show, rather than coming out of the two, 1,000-watt speakers.
Right.
It's just, I like that better. We can make a phone ring on stage, make a refrigerator work in a lighting guy's case, or a practical light. It's much more fun than trying to, it adds to the realism of the live theater, I think.
Okay, anyway, one more, Jane.
Can you copyright a lighting design?
Well, never thought about that, have you?
Well, I suppose, probably not, actually.
Well, I hope not, because I owe him a lot of
I
money.
don't know. One of the things I've always found fascinating about my art form is that most of the people looking at it aren't aware that it's going on. And after the show closes, it's gone. I save, I'm starting to throw things out finally, but I've saved generally most of my notes and my discs from the show I've done in Santa Fe. Because every once in a while I'll go, wow, what this scene needs is that thing I did in that show 15 years ago. And I'll find my notes and duplicate it. I've known lighting designers who, as soon as the show closed, they literally erased everything in the console and unplugged everything so nobody could use their design. I see that as being a phenomenal waste of time and effort, because if somebody's using my design, it's still not gonna look the same. I work with design, at the Actors Lab, when they rent it out, I mean, there have been cases where, you know, I know the designer's coming in for the next show, and I said, you know, here's what's in the air right now from my show. Here's what it does, and here's how it's patched, and if this does you any good, great, saves you some work. Because they're using the same tools, but it's gonna be a different look. That's the way I feel about it.
I'm very excited everybody showed up tonight. I really am. And I do want to make one more announcement before we leave, just about what's coming up. On Saturday, the 18th, we are going to be looking at Upstart Crow's Nest, and it'll be a La Tierra at the shopping center out in El Dorado. If you're interested in coming, it's as you like it. And there will be a little free dinner there at 5 o'clock through Fusion Tacos at 5, and the performance is at 6:30. So you can look on Theater Lover Club and be sure to show up there if you're interested. Personally, I love these chats. Personally, I really do. I think we learn so much about theater. We learn about what's really going on behind theater. This is a very unsung heroes area. So much for our shows, and they are totally behind the scenes. So next performance you go to, pay attention and let them know how much you've enjoyed your work, and that would be
Jeff, I can
awesome.
throw it on just a coda to that last question about copywriting design. There's a group on Facebook called Everything Lighting Design, and it's primarily rock and roll stuff, but not always. And the people who not everyone can comment on this group, the people who primarily do comment are all highly skilled and highly in-demand professionals in the art and business of lighting design for rock and roll and theater as well. And people ask, I saw this, how did they do that? And without, everyone who answers says, oh, here's how they did it. This is exactly this is how I did that on this concert. Here's how you do it. That's what this fixture is. We love what we do and we share what we do. You want to know how to do that effect? I'll tell you how to do that effect, because I want you to do it right.
It's like any business, it's sharing your knowledge and sharing what you've learned in many years of whatever field you're in. That's like, if you're successful, then you gotta share that.
Yeah. That's how it sounds like that's how you learn, is that somebody shared their knowledge with you.
You learn to do light design by stealing from other light designers. Go into a show and watch and go, yeah, looks great. How did they do that? Okay, I'm gonna use that.
Well, can we give a big hand of applause for him?
Thank you for letting me do it.